A few years ago, I had an employee that had done a great job in the field, and we were promoting him up to a corporate position. And this meant a few days in the office a month. It combined some travel, and then we had flex days. So it really maybe 8 to 10 days a month in the office, but that was obviously 8 to 10 days more than he expected or liked because after several months of doing this, he came to me and said that coming into the office was sucking the soul out of him.
Did
Maybe
he
not the,
really?
yeah, oh yeah, maybe not
Oh
the
my gosh.
exact words, but definitely to that effect. Um, and it was very, I thought it was a little bit odd that some people are so opposed to coming into the office, even as little bit as we were asking for him to do. And so he went back to the field. He took the pay cut, went back to his old job, and was completely happy to work remote and go between the stores. And the commute was, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 minutes every day.
Which is not bad. That's pretty typical.
Yeah, it is. And I've been spoiled because every commute I've had has been like 20 minutes or less. But, I don't live in a huge town or city, so it doesn't take me very long. But I know you've always worked remote. Well, I say always since you've been in the travel business.
Yeah, the
Um,
last 14 years.
yeah, yeah, I knew it was almost 15.
Mm.
So would you feel the same way if somebody said, "Hey, I've got this great opportunity for you. You're getting a raise, you're getting a promotion, but you have to commute into the office a few times a week." How do you feel about that?
I think that would be terrible. I think the main issue, or not the main issue, but the main benefit of working from home for me, first of all, I'm own my own business, so I'm flexible of when I work. I've worked everywhere, the pool, carpool line, doctor's offices, office. But if he had young children and no other support. I could get his point, but I mean, you just get so much benefit from working in an office. Until recently, that was kind of unheard of that you didn't work in an office. So it's part of me just doesn't compute that because I spent the first, let me do the math, 7, 8 years in an office, every day, either 8 to 5, 8:30 to 5:30. And that was your environment. Like you learned so much from working in an office, whether it's, with your boss or your support staff or other coworkers as part of a team. I just don't get how it you can work in that environment away from everybody.
Well, I'm
So,
surprised to hear you say that because I thought you'd be team remote all the way.
well, I mean, I am. I mean, one of the reasons why I chose this career and to be, my own business owner was because I mean, I would be fine. I was totally willing to stay with my previous company before I had kids, but and know that I was going to be in the office every day, 8:30 to 5:30 and traveling multiple days the week or weeks out of the year, but it just didn't work out that way. So when I had a choice, I said, I don't want to have to put my kids in childcare over the summer, or different camps. I wanted to be with them. I wanted to be the mom who also works alongside my kids. But
But
just
how does it work from your perspective? I mean, you own your own business.
yeah.
So if you need to take a break for a couple of hours and do carpool and shuffle kids to after school activities, that's one thing. But if somebody is working remote and they're on the on the clock, then how does that work? And we'll pause and talk to Charles. Hey, Charles, how are you?
Sorry. Hey.
No, no, no. We were just kind of riffing on some stuff, and I'll pause it. All right, we have a guest today. So Karen and I have been kind of riffing on benefits and disadvantages of remote work, and we have an expert with us today. Charles Baughman is with ITAC Solutions. He is VP of Sales, Chief Innovation Officer, partner, and probably a lot of other things from day to day. So he said you can kind of spin the wheel and see what title he's going to perform that day. So we're glad to have Charles with us. He has, I'll let him tell it, but he's managed remote people, currently manages remote workers and in office, hires people for in office and remote and all that. So Thank you, Charles, for being here. Appreciate it. And so, why don't you tell us about your just experience with remote versus in office workers? Just kind of kick us off here.
Sure. Well, I mean, we've seen the evolution of those two scenarios, and then we've seen the combination of the two for hybrid employees or hybrid work situations. And I mean, from what I can discern, while some people have been fortunate enough to be in roles where they could work remotely for more than a decade, many people just experienced this in 2020 during COVID, and employers wanted to retain their employees. They wanted to be able to meet the needs of their customers, but no one could work in the same space, or at least we were supposed to keep 6 feet apart from each other. So it really forced employers to get creative quickly, and that created a need for a lot of flexibility. And I think because it happened so quickly, none of us knew how to do it correctly.
So, what do you mean by we didn't know how to do it correctly? What do you think could have been done differently or should have been done differently?
Well, under the circumstances, I mean, I don't know how much could have been done differently. Hindsight's 2020. So if we could have predicted that we would all have to work remotely, we probably would have done a lot of preparation, training, looked at the right technologies to keep people plugged in and integrated,
Hmm.
um, and taught our leaders how to manage a remote workforce, both from a management perspective, which is really about getting the tasks done, to leading a remote team, which is, you know, focusing on cohesion and collaboration and retaining culture. So that's where I say that was really the difficult part, because I think our minds immediately went to, well, we've got to keep the lights on, if you will, keep our
Sure.
customers delighted. Not so much, okay, well, what does this mean in terms of how we communicate with each other on a day-to-day basis? And how do I get comfortable with employees working remotely when I'm so accustomed to being able to walk by their desk to see that they're working? I don't know what that feels like in a world where I don't get to see them at their desk.
Yeah. And I'll say, as a manager of people before and after COVID, that was something I majorly had to adjust to. And telling on myself here, I felt at times that the remote folks were out of sight, out of mind. The people that I saw day to day that were in my face, stopping by my office, I could walk to their cube. Those tended to be ones that were kind of, I don't know, the sounding board for things and the collaborators, and it was very hard. I had to make a conscious effort to reach out to those folks that were remote. And maybe if your entire workforce is remote, then you don't have necessarily that issue. But it was definitely a challenge for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, in our world, when we went remote, um, it totally changed how we had to be very much more intentional with how we communicated about anything and everything. Um, I think we also were accustomed to putting a new employee next to an experienced employee and expecting some level of absorption, if you will, of
Hmm.
all the things that experienced employee would be able to share with the new employee because they were just close by. And that didn't work anymore. And I mean, at some point, I remember one of the managers said, "I just keep the employee on one of my screens, so I'm there. We're both working independently, but if somebody has a question, they can just see me, and we can. It's almost like we're sitting next to each other."
Hmm. I'd never thought about that before.
Yeah,
That's
that's pretty
interesting.
smart.
So obviously, the pendulum swung in 2020, early 2021, toward remote work and the availability of that. And if you wanted to work remote, you could probably do that in just about any industry. I mean, for the most part. So has the pendulum swung back? Do you see it swinging back? Like what's the current temperature of all the jobs that y'all are recruiting for right now? You know, how many are 100% remote? How many are in that hybrid? And how many, you know, what percentage would you say is 100% in the office?
I had a feeling you might ask me a question like that. So I did the research, and
Huh.
less than 10% of all of the jobs that we have are either hybrid or remote. And
Oh, really?
really, about 4% are remote.
Okay, that is interesting. That's a lot lower than I thought it would
Yeah,
be.
I would expect it to be like a 40%, but that's
Hmm.
Yeah,
huge.
it
Huh.
is. And I mean, I think that you've got a lot of companies that feel the need to protect or preserve their culture and also haven't identified maybe the way that they can be comfortable evaluating employee productivity or contributions remotely.
Yeah, I mean, going back to kind of what we were talking about before Charles got on was, I enjoyed being in my office. It was, I mean, granted, it was a very creative industry, and so it was a lot of teamwork and camaraderie, and we leaned off each other. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? But just we had fun. I mean, it was an enjoyable. I didn't feel like, oh, I gotta go to work, which they say if you're, and happy to go to work, you're never really working. But it was fun. Like I really enjoyed it. So to think that people are missing out on that and just the mentorship, and just the ability to learn. Like I was the bench player for my boss, and without that, I just don't know how you grow, especially just out of college. You've been in classes and being instructed and taught, and then having to go and produce work on your own. It's a foreign concept to me, as someone who spent so many years in an office. And now it's me, myself, and I in my company. So I'm on an island by myself, which is fine, and I work with go with the flow. But just those early years out of college or, just entering the workforce without the camaraderie and mentorship, I just don't know how you really thrive and can grow as, not necessarily employee, but just in your work status, how that really works. So that makes sense that they're trying to get everybody back into the office as much as possible.
Yeah, and Karen, we've actually, I think a lot of the people that we've invited to consider working at ITAC, who are just recent grads
Hmm.
or are preparing to graduate, they've been pretty clear that they want to be in an office with coworkers.
Hmm.
So I think that maybe there's even a little bit of push from the candidate side
Hmm.
to be back in the office surrounded by coworkers so that they can build that sense of camaraderie, that team,
Hmm.
and have friends.
Right, right. Especially if you move to a new city, those are your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're working remote, you don't have to move, most likely.
Well, true, but you could have
Yeah, I mean, you
moved
want
to a
to move out of
city.
your college town, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I know. When my son started his career, it was 2020. It was right in the middle of COVID, and so he was working 100% remote, and they left them remote for quite a while. And he would go into the office, maybe once or twice a week just to have that camaraderie because he was also working on a team that none of them were in Birmingham. So his day-to-day interaction was with people that were in Memphis or Atlanta or Charlotte. And so that of course was all digital. Um, so he wanted to go into the remote go into the office to have a little bit of that friendship and camaraderie because those are the people that recruited him and wanted him to come work there, and he hardly ever saw him. And now I think they're a hybrid office, and he goes in probably more often than not. Um, but I definitely think that those younger folks, they yearn for that and need that camaraderie and that mentorship from the people above them as well to learn and grow in their career. So, one thing we haven't really touched on is that work life balance. So, you get people that are working remote, and some people are probably really good at like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, 5:30, whatever it is. I'm going to turn off the computer, shut the door on this room, and I'm done. And then you get other people, probably like me, that are, whether you're in an office or working from home, and it just like never stops. Like you don't ever turn your inbox off. You're getting text all the time. And, I've always, well, I say always, for the last 15 years worked in hospitality, which is open 7 days a week. So I would get those calls from franchisees and operators on nights and weekends about different things. But Charles, from your perspective, has remote work increased that work-life balance, or has it just we moved everything into just a smaller space within the four walls of whatever room we're in or our home?
Yeah, I feel like what has happened is we've just moved the office into maybe a more comfortable surrounding.
Mhm.
And we have, in essence, extended the workday. And people have been allowed to, I had like for our with our company, people have been allowed to identify like what the work schedule is that works for them to some extent.
Mhm.
Um, but in doing that, there becomes this disconnect, if you will, for the traditional employee who's working, let's say 7:30 to 5:30 or 8 to 5.
Mhm.
And then you have coworkers that seem to really kick into fifth gear at 7 o'clock at night,
Mm.
and they're working remotely. And so they're kicking out emails and trying to get things done. And for the person who is not in that schedule, on that schedule, there's this feeling of, well, I want to be responsive. I want to help my coworker get their work accomplished, but now they're creeping into my personal time.
Mhm.
And that I think requires some boundary setting at the company level to make sure everybody understands during these hours, this is when we're communicating. If it's urgent, feel free to communicate when you need to. But outside of that, if you want to send an email, just don't expect a response until the workday.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm bad about staying up late, and I'll send out emails, and I don't do it expecting a response. That's just the time that, between 9 and 11 p.m. are kind of, I don't know, some of my creative spots, and my, I don't know, juices get flowing then, and trying to figure out, things. And um, so I don't expect a response, but I do, first thing in the morning, hopefully when people open their laptops and check their email, I would hope that I would have something on the top of their inbox that they would respond to, whether it's a coworker or, sometimes vendors and different stuff.
Let me
Um,
confirm that you do. Your emails are at the top of my inbox when I'm getting up at 4:15 in the morning. So like, hey, Julie's
Yeah,
all over it.
she texted me. Actually went to bed early the other night and she texted me something at 11:15 and I woke up at 6:15 and I'm Eastern, so I'm like, I don't think she wants a response from me for a while. And then she texted me later like, "Did you get it?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't want to email you or text you back at 6:15 in the morning." So,
I
I have a
know.
cutoff of 10 p.m. because I've been doing this long enough that after 10 p.m. my brain, that's kind of my off time. So although
Mhm.
I am a night owl, I will like 10 o'clock, like I'm just done. Unless it's an emergency, I'm not doing anything because I've found that after 10, I can make mistakes. So that's,
Mm.
Yeah.
but
I
I'm
mean,
also,
you're setting healthy boundaries.
well, less dangerous boundaries. Because I'm also, as soon
Okay.
as I wake up in the morning, I roll over like, okay, is anybody in Europe having a problem? Because, I have clients all
Mm,
over, at any given time. And I've been called at 3 a.m. like, our rental car has the wrong name on it. Like, well, I didn't know that she was driving,
okay.
everything's in his name. So, whatever. There's been reasons over the years or, Thanksgiving Day. But yeah, I feel like I'm always tied to my phone.
She
And
is. She's totally tied to her phone all the time. I can attest to that.
well, I have to. I have to, like, I'm still waiting on a reply from somebody to get with the other people who were leaving. There's just always something going on that I've got to, but that doesn't mean I'm constantly working 12 hours a day. It's little here, little there. So I guess that leads me to my question of, do you think, we're doing more than 40 hours if we're kind of spacing things out? Or is it 40 hours just over maybe a 12-hour day where we'll work a bit, or, I might go for a walk, or, we'll do a load of laundry, then come back and sit down for a few hours. What do you think about that? Because I've never really calculated it, so I don't really know, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just situational. It depends upon the kind of work the person's doing, right? So you have to be more available and accessible to your customers, Karen, because to your point, they're in different time zones and they have things that pop up that require immediate attention. So there is what I think of as being responsive work and then productive work.
true. That's, yeah, that makes
And
sense.
I question for in some situations how much of the 40 hours or the 45 hours is productive versus just being available when an email comes in or someone calls your desk.
True.
And so that's the difficult part to kind of get right with,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I'm somebody who believes that first of all, I want people to be fulfilled in the work that they're doing. I want them to be accessible to the people that we serve. So it doesn't matter if you're recruiting or in sales, let's be accessible to our customers. And to like be productive. So do those things, be fulfilled, serve the customers, be productive. And if that means that you need to cut out at 3 o'clock for a family thing or just because you've got something else that you need to do, cool. Are you going to come back later and get the things done that you need to get done? I trust that my people are.
Hmm.
And I think that you get to when you start talking with candidates who are really interested in that flexibility, I think that a lot of times what they're really asking for is trust. They want trust and autonomy.
Hmm.
And so that flexibility is just a proxy for trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know
And oh,
I've
go
never
ahead.
told any employee, no, you can't do that. You can't have the time off that you need to do something personal. You can't have, whatever, doctor's appointments or whatever it is.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I do have their trust, or I guess I don't know which way it goes. But anyway, I know that anything that is not going to get finished because of that disruption, it better be taken care of pretty quickly as soon as things get back to normal, whatever it is. But
100%.
Kara, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I'm just saying, I feel like it's the working environment is more flexible these days because, so many of, two parents work. So somebody's got to go to the kids' performance and, be able to pick them up from school. And maybe they have an early sporting event they have to go to. Or, I mean, doctors most of the time are not open on the weekends, or the dentist. So I am seeing more people out and about and coming to different events. Me being flexible, haven't had to worry about that, but I do see a lot of my friends who do have 9 to 5 jobs at different events, and able to take their kids to do things, which I think is a healthy. It's that work life balance we've talked about. But I guess their employers are expecting them to, you miss this meeting, or make up the work later on, or you stay later the next day, or take something home with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So Charles, we talked about the early early career folks, the ones that have just graduated that are yearning for that camaraderie and that collaboration in the office. But do you see a generational difference? I mean, Karen and I are both Gen Xers. So, we were brought up kind of those old school ways. Yeah, yeah,
Me too. Yep.
Um,
you go to the office is what you do.
yeah, you go to the office. Thankfully, I had 10 years in there that I was a stay-at-home mom and just did part-time gigs here and there, which allowed me to have that flexibility to go and do what I needed to do with schools and all that kind of stuff. But so do you see like a certain generation or age group now that is clamoring more for the remote positions that are out there? Do you see any? We like to talk on this podcast a lot about the different generations and how our kids now, or her kids are teenagers, mine are young adults, how things are different now than they were when she and I were kids. So, how do you see any of those generational or age differences?
Well, I think that one of the generational differences is that for our generation, we saw our parents maybe
Mostly our dad.
overcommitted to work in
Hmm.
some
Yeah,
cases, right?
yeah.
So there was that, and there was this idea that overcommitment was in exchange for a secure job that was going to last forever until they chose to retire. And generations following ours picked up on the fact that maybe people were sold a bad bill of goods, right? And so that loyalty from the employer side dissipated. And I think that the younger generation saw that, and they realized that maybe what their parents were promised and or may have experienced was no longer available for a lot of different reasons. Nonetheless, I think it changed their sense of um, what is necessary to be successful, their priorities, how they define success, and they really lean into the idea of purpose driven work. That's that is very important to younger generations, being able to align their personal values and their priorities with the work that they're doing and the company that they're working for. So in that change or shift in prioritization, I think they decided, well, I really want to work for a good company, but a good company is going to trust me. They're going to give me autonomy. They're probably also going to promote me 5 times in the first 18 months. Um, Another topic for another podcast, maybe, but uh,
Yes.
Noted.
it's the
Yes.
challenge. It is a challenge. And I think that what happened is they were more vocal. I can't imagine in my 20s being vocal about my dissatisfaction with my work schedule or anything. It was, yes, more, please.
Mhm.
Whatever it was that I was asked to do, yes, more. And I have probably benefited from those younger generations in terms of their their level of vocalization, their expectations, which can be, sometimes they can be entitlement or perceived as entitlement versus anything else. Um, but I think we've benefited from it. I know that at least in our organization, the people who are, millennials and Gen Xers are benefiting from those younger generations and taking advantage of being able to work remotely and have some of that flexibility that, again, I can't even conceive of the idea of going up to my boss when I was 22 and saying, I'd like some flexibility in my schedule. They would say, you can have flexibility, you can have a job or not have a job.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it was maybe a harder work environment or job opportunities back then,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like there was, I don't know, maybe it was just my perspective, but I felt like it was, less job opportunities back then. So it was like you did go to the office and you did what they said because the alternative was just, I'm not going back home to live with my parents because I lost my job. So, whatever they said, like, yes, exactly, I'll do it. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I got out of school, got out of college, there was a recession going on, and the jobs, at least for my marketing advertising career, were few and far between. My first, I did have an offer, a job offer, to make $16,000 a year, and I did turn that one down. Thought that was a little too low. But yeah, it was kind of that, if I better do whatever I'm asked, because if I don't, there's four other people behind me that
Mm-hmm.
are willing to take that spot.
yeah, yeah.
And I guess that's not the same way now, or maybe it is and they just don't care. I don't know.
we see people who turn down jobs a lot. And it's not because they have three other offers. It's that it just doesn't line up with where they want to be in their career or some other aspect of who they are as a person.
Mhm.
So their mantra of, or the mantra of, you get a job, you take a job to get a job. They don't care about that. They'd
No,
rather just sit home or do nothing.
I think that they're holding out for the
Okay.
ideal situation,
Mm.
Yeah,
which
we
is
didn't get that option. Our parents were like, "This is a job, you take it." Okay. Even though it's may not be what you want or the position you want, it's a job, you take
if
it.
you want gas money, if you want
Right.
any of the quote unquote extras,
Right.
yeah, you had to work for it.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, Charles, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank
It's
you.
been very interesting and very educational. I'm still just reeling from the stat that you said about all the jobs that y'all have listed there, how few of them are remote or hybrid. So that pendulum has definitely swung back
Mhm.
from the
Yeah.
way that it was
And probably
5
for the
years ago.
best too.
What, Care?
Probably for the best.
Probably. I think there's still a,
I mean, I can say that because I work from home and I have my own business, but I
yeah,
think for others, I feel like it's better. But
yeah. I think there's a healthy balance that can be made
sure.
between all of it. A
Yeah.
little bit in the office, you get that camaraderie
Hmm.
and that collaboration. And then when you need to do just like head down in your
Mm,
computer, that kind of work, do that remote, do it from home where you have less distractions. People
Yes.
don't
Very
come
true.
and, knock on your door all the time. So
True.
there's something to be said for both.
Yep.
But anyway,
Yep.
any
I agree.
final thoughts, Charles? Anything you want to impart to our listeners today?
I would just say that, if you're an employer, definitely think about the type of work that you're asking people to do and um, lean into the idea of offering some sort of flexibility for the things that they can do remotely. If you aren't, um, if you're not in a place where you're able to really trust your workforce, um, look deeply, look inward and do a little exploration there to find out what's causing that lack of trust. Is it simply that you aren't able to measure what's getting done? And then put some systems in place so that you can measure the productivity. You may be surprised at how much people are actually doing. And if you see that the data supports your suspicion, maybe it's a wrong person, wrong seat scenario.
Mhm. Good sound advice. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely,
that.
ladies. This is great. Thank you
Yep.
for inviting me to join.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right.
Okay, that was a very interesting conversation with Charles about remote versus in office and generational differences and all that. And I bet you have some thoughts on some of the things that we kicked around there.
Yes. Two thoughts I had about the generational differences and just the way that we were raised of you get a job and you work the job and you really, not to say you don't ask questions, but I did have a friend in fifth grade who we were doing something with Girl Scouts and she said, "Why don't I ever see your dad?" She goes, "Oh, are they divorced?" And I said, "No, he just works all the time." Like I think it was what, working like 7 to 6 and then every Saturday or most every Saturday, unless it was
Yeah,
a football game. And I was
he,
like, "No, he just works all the time." And he
yeah,
did.
he and Bud would alternate Saturdays.
Okay.
And then I think when they brought in somebody else, then they could do every third Saturday. And they
Okay.
closed it too, I think. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I have told umpteen people. I think I've even used this story on other podcasts and stuff, and you probably don't even remember this, but the day I turned 16 was a Saturday,
Yes.
and Dad came and woke me up and was like, "We're going to work," and I was like, "What?" It's my 16th birthday. I have a birthday party tonight, and he was like, "Well, party's not right now. You're going to work. It's a work day." And
Yep.
I could not believe that. I was
Mhm.
floored that he made me go to work on my 16th birthday. But now I look back on it and I'm like, well, that that's where my work ethic came from. It's just, it's
Right.
what you do the job
Mhm.
until you finish doing it. And this is a totally different subject for another day, but he also showed us servant leadership. So there was nothing in that dry cleaning plant that he was too good for or above doing. And
Correct.
if a I can't remember what they called him, somebody that pressed all the stuff. Oh, a spotter. I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
He had
Yeah.
to go to that spotting school and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But if a spotter was out that day for whatever reason, Dad was stuck on
Mhm.
a station doing all the
Mhm.
spotting that day, or if somebody
Yeah.
running a certain piece of equipment was out, Dad was
Yep.
back there doing it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and he also treated everybody with, whether they were that spotter or his very best customer, he treated everybody the same.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right, enough of that down memory lane. Any other thoughts that you had off of Charles's?
Yeah, yeah, two different things. That actually brought up one more. My first manager at my first job when I was making, I don't want to say it was a little bit more than what you said your first job offer was, but not much. I still
Yeah.
remember depositing that paycheck every week. Um, but he did tell me I stayed with them for a year and then I moved to another company that I originally applied for the year before after I graduated. And he said, you don't want to get a reputation as someone who keeps hopping jobs all the time.
Mhm.
And I think that was just an old school mentality. Not
Yep.
that I think you should hop, but I feel like a lot of people almost like cell carriers. I'm gonna hop to Verizon because they're gonna give me the best deal. Then I'll go to AT&T, and then I'm going to Sprint if Sprint's even available. I don't know. I mean, I've been with
Mhm.
Verizon for however many years we've had a
Yeah,
cell phone.
it's Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile now. Those are your basic choices.
Okay, see, I don't even know, but
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so I mean, like like, well, it's just a better opportunity, a more advanced company.
Mhm.
But then also he told me one other good lesson while we're kind of on the topic of this is that don't ever say that's not my job.
Oh,
Like
yes.
no matter what it is, don't ever say that's not my job. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to instill that in my kids that someone, boss or your coach or whomever asks you to do something, don't ever say that's not my job. Because I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
just
You don't want to get a reputation of that
no,
for sure. And back to
no.
your job hopping thing. Um, the way it is now, raises are so measly.
Hmm.
Most companies will do a 3 or 4% cost of living increase at the end of every year. And really the only way, well, two ways to kind of jump your salary is get a promotion, which,
Hmm.
depending on where you are, those may be few and far between, or change companies
Yes.
and, get a better opportunity. So
Yeah.
I can see how, today it's not as taboo as it was back in
Right.
the 90s and early 2000s.
Hmm.
Somebody, it doesn't set off a ton of red flags if you see that somebody spent it, 2 years everywhere and no longer. I mean, it's probably not ideal if they didn't spend more than that, but it's not like a total deal breaker that,
Yeah. You
um,
definitely have to ask questions of why, because you don't want to take them and train them for 2 years and then have them go somewhere else and take
yeah,
all your
yeah,
knowledge. So maybe they were looking for that right fit, and
mhm,
hopefully you are that right fit.
yeah. So, I do have some stats here. Let me end with a few interesting things. So 81% of remote professionals check email outside of work hours, 63% on weekends, and 34% on vacation. So I know you're included in all of that.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Um, and I really try, I mean, it depends on like what vacation. Like when we went to the Mediterranean, I think I checked email once or twice.
Hmm.
Um, but like if I'm just going to the beach and just sitting on the beach at the Gulf, I'll check email more often because I have more opportunity to respond to something if
Right.
need be. Um, 42% of remote workers say they struggle to set boundaries when they're not in the office, and 56% have felt burned out in the last 2 years.
Hmm.
That's
That's a lot.
maybe that's a good thing for Charles trying to fill all those in office positions that people are like, okay, I'm tired of being dinged and slacked and whatever all the time. I want to go back to the office so I can just shut it all down and not have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And one last thing, 69% of remote workers report burnout from digital tools, with many professionals logging hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. due to blurred boundaries. Well, I would not be the one logging in at 7 a.m. That's for sure. When y'all are talking about returning emails and stuff at night and all that, I've told everybody I've ever worked with that if I'm sending an email at 5:30, 6:30 in the morning, it's because I'm on an airplane heading somewhere, hopefully fun, because
Yes.
I am not going to be up and at them
No.
at that time of day. I'm a night owl, not an early
Yeah.
morning
Yeah.
person
And
at all.
sometimes I'll change or I'll set my emails to go out at a certain time, like 8 a.m. Monday morning. So that way someone doesn't feel, because sometimes if someone says, oh no, hurry on this, and then I'll kind of put it out of my mind. But if they could set it to where it shows up at 8 a.m. on Monday when I'm in work mode, because I'll do that too. And then finally, like, let's just set it to where they actually get it during work hours.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I've used
Dinner
that
at night.
sparingly, but could probably do
Hmm.
a better job with that as well.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all righty. Well, this has been an interesting episode. Definitely a departure from what we talked about last time.
Yeah.
And I
We'll
think
walk
interest.
down my work memory lane
Yeah,
since
yeah.
it's
You
been a
had to go
while.
back into the old timey memory vault to pull out
Yeah.
some of those.
Yeah. But it was fun. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
Yep, always. So again, thanks to Charles Baughman from ITAC Solutions for being our guest today, and we will see you next time on That's Not How This Works.